I'll find myself at time, me and my wife, we'll go through cycle. We'll binge watch something. If you know what binge, I didn't find out till about 2 or 3 years ago. They got this stuff out. You can watch TV online now with I never knew it was such a thing to wreck your life. You talk about getting obsessed and addicted, meditating on, looking at a show. I was up till 5 a.m. many a night. And so we can find ourselves medicating on the world in so many different ways, even good things. Like you think working's good and getting more hours in and earning a little more money, and so you overwork. We will find ourselves always trying to do something external to settle the internal thing that we need. It's always crying out for God. But I want to talk tonight about faith and vision. When you have a vision, you're going to have some faith get behind that. We got to see past the temporary. This isn't a new year. It's the new year. It's not a New Year's resolution. I think something like 2% of any of the people that says they make resolutions ever keep them over 6 weeks. Most people never make it about 3 days, by the way, 17 days if you did good. And most people never do follow through with a resolution. A resolution's kind of like a fantasy. I wish. Instead of I will, I wish. Too many people were wishing instead of willing, amen? And so I want to talk to you tonight about having faith in that. And I'm going to talk about the Israelites coming out of Egypt, and God promised them a promised land. And when they didn't get into their promised land, their hope got deferred, how they cried and wanted to go back. And God ended up having to kill off a whole generation before you could get the next people in. So the first thing I want to talk to you about tonight is that many times as we get into let me just say this. Sight and vision are two different things. I've got sight. I can see when I'm driving down the road. I got pretty good sight. Matter of fact, nowadays I wear little glasses, so I got better sight. I used to have my phone, and the text would be so big people could read it from across the room, and they'd ask me what was wrong with me. Well, I said, I'm getting a little older, and my sight isn't as good as it once was, and my sight has changed, so I wear eyeglasses now. I've got pretty good sight with my glasses, but sight is not vision. Sight is you seeing what you can see with your eyes open. And vision is you seeing what you can't see at all yet. And it doesn't even look like it yet. I want to roll that into a minute before I get into these stories about Israel. I want to tell you some things about me and vision and how I got to where I am. I love sharing my personal experiences, what the Lord did with me and how the Lord works with me and my wife. I was sharing with somebody the other day. I just realized we just celebrated the opening of our new building today. It'll be on WSAZ, we heard. They did a big story, so you guys can catch that tonight. I'll try to share the link later. But so we have it's a 37,000 square foot building, completely remodeled with 2 full gyms. Like, it's silly to us that exists. We have a home that we bought 5 or 6, 7 years ago that we didn't own. And we just got another new home, and the vehicles we have. I want to tell you guys about vision and how that worked. And I'll start with how when I started Lifehouse, God gave me a word and a hope that I had a vision to help other men. When I came home from prison and found out I never had to go back again, because I learned that if I could just learn how to not drink and not use drugs, I would never go to prison again. I said, I have a vision. I'm going to show other people how never to go back to prison. That was my start. And I had a vision to help men do that. And I knew the Lord was involved, that I could not stop drinking and drugging without God, that Jesus had died for me. I've received forgiveness of my sins, and that gave me a new spirit inside of me. The Spirit of God came to live with my spirit and empowered me in a way I was never capable of living before. Once that happened, I knew I had to share that with everybody. And I couldn't help people at just one of them 12-step meetings and go there and do everything I could with them for 2, even 4 or 5, 6 hours a day and send them back to Ray and them house. You just send them back to Ray and them, or over to baby mama and all that, their Aunt Susie and whatever, all that stuff that happens in the bad environment they go back to would completely negate everything I did for those 2, 4, 6 hours I spent with them in the day. So I knew they had to come live with me in a new community, a new environment, headed in the right direction. So my vision was to obtain a home, and I was a poor man. I was a man with no credit, and I was a man with no driver's license. So I was still riding a bicycle. I rode a bicycle everywhere I went. Early on, I used to drive a couple times, just short distances in my girlfriend's truck, and somebody with some sense called me out and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "You didn't have a license." I said, "Well, it's only about a block and a half, and it's snowing, et cetera." And they said, "It goes against everything you said you're teaching these men." And I learned that day on there was no right way to do the wrong thing. And I never drove again. So I rode a bicycle for several years everywhere I went. Now, when I say a bicycle, I used to get me one of them I didn't drive. Well, I had two bikes, by the way. I had a beach cruiser. I ride around like Debo when I was local. And if I was trying to go somewhere, I had me a mountain bike with a seat about this high, and my feet barely touched the pedal. I couldn't hardly get up on it. But once I got going, I get across town about quick as you can in a car. And as a matter of fact, I beat the traffic lights and everything. So sometimes I might even beat you. So I rode that bicycle everywhere, and here I'm riding a bicycle, and God gave me a word that I could buy a home, and a realtor gave me the word, said he could help me buy a home in